I had until the Waitress arrived to decide whether I'd let him die. My ballpoint pen pressed into the receipt, so hard the carbon copy beneath probably read it too. 7 words. That's all it took to choose a side in a war I didn't understand. The paper felt thinner than skin, like it might disintegrate before it reached his hand. Around me, Celestina's hummed with the low frequency of money, silverware against bone china, hushed Italian blending with Korean, the whisper of silk against butter-soft leather. Outside, the rain came down in sheets, turning the city into a blur of neon and brake lights. But in here, everything was warm. Too warm. Suffocating. I approached table 12 like I was walking toward my own execution. Huan Ji Lim sat with his back to the corner, never the window, always the exit. He looked like violence wearing Tom Ford. Sharp jawline, black hair slicked back with the kind of precision that suggested control in every aspect of his life. Ink climbed up the side of his neck, an intricate design that disappeared beneath his collar, a tattoo that marked him as dangerous even in a $3,000 suit. His hand rested on the white tablecloth, fingers drumming a slow, predatory rhythm. Beside him, Serena Calabrese leaned in close, whispering something that made her red lips curve into a smile. Her pearl earrings caught the candlelight, throwing fractured elegance across the table. She touched his wrist like she owned it, like she loved him. She didn't. 30 minutes ago, I'd heard her order his death. The wine cellar at Celestina's wasn't really a cellar. It was a climate-controlled vault in the basement, all glass walls and soft lighting that made the bottles glow like jewels in a museum. I'd been sent down to grab a 2009 Barolo for table 4, threading my way past rows of Brunellos and Super Tuscans when I heard her voice. Female. Sharp. Speaking Italian like she was cutting glass. Tavolo Dodisai. L'uomo con il tatuaggio. Table 12. The man with the tattoo. I froze between the Chiantis and the Amarones, my hand still reaching for the bottle I'd been sent to find. My Italian was restaurant level at best, enough to know panna cotta from tiramisu, enough to smile when customers spoke it, not enough to understand much beyond food and wine. But I caught fragments. Tavolo Dodisai. Table 12. Quando essi. When he leaves. Vicino alla sera. Near the exit. Lumachine sono già in posizione. The cars are already in position. And then she switched. Russian maybe? Something harsh and consonant-heavy that turned the air in the cellar Arctic despite the carefully maintained 55 degrees. I couldn't understand the words, but I understood the tone. This wasn't a conversation. This was a confirmation. A countdown. The bottle in my hand suddenly felt impossibly heavy. Avrai un tiro piloto quando attraversa la porta. You'll have a clean shot when he walks through the door. My breath caught. The temperature-controlled air that was supposed to protect $1,000 bottles suddenly felt like it was crushing my lungs. She continued in that other language, sharp, efficient final. Then back to Italian. Alle 10. Non prima. At 10 o'clock. Not before. Heels clicked against the stone floor, moving toward the stairs. I pressed myself against the wine rack, praying the shadows and bottles would hide me. Through the gaps between vintages worth more than my yearly salary, I caught a glimpse of her. Tall. Elegant. Wearing that deep red dress that looked like it cost more than my father's hospital bills. Light brown hair swept in soft vintage curls. Pearl earrings catching the light like tiny weapons. Serena Calabrese. The woman currently sitting at table 12, playing the role of loving fiancée to the man she'd just arranged to have executed. She disappeared up the stairs. Her perfume lingered, something expensive and floral that now smelled like a funeral arrangement, like white lilies on a closed casket. I stood there for 10 seconds. 15. 20. waiting for my legs to remember how to work, for my lungs to remember how to breathe. When I finally climbed back up to the main floor, Barolo forgotten, my brain was sprinting through everything I'd heard. Table 12. Near the exit. The cars are ready. Clean shot when he walks through the door. 10 o'clock. I stepped back onto the restaurant floor and everything clicked into focus with horrifying clarity. Table 12. Corner booth. Hwanji Lim and Serena Calabrese. Chicago's most talked about power couple, Korean Mafia and Italian mob princess. Their engagement had been society page news for months. A merger disguised as romance. Or maybe a murder disguised as both. I scanned the restaurant with new eyes, my serving tray pressed against my ribs like a shield. Two men near the entrance. Mid-30s, dark suits, backs to the wall. Menus open for 25 minutes now. Never ordered. Never looked at the menus. Just sat there, watching. One woman at the bar. Designer suit, champagne flute she hadn't touched in 15 minutes. She wasn't watching the flat screen showing the Bulls game. She was watching Table 12. Another man by the coat check, hand inside his jacket, like he was reaching for his wallet. But he'd been standing there too long. Not moving. Not leaving. Just waiting. My heart kicked against my ribs, so hard I thought it might crack bone. I looked back at Table 12, at Hwanji laughing at something Serena said, completely unaware that the woman touching his arm had just orchestrated his execution. That in less than an hour, when he stood to leave, when he walked through that door into the rain, for people were going to put bullets in him, I could walk away. Clock out early. Say I felt sick. Let whatever was about to happen just happen. Men like Hwanji Lim didn't end up in crosshairs by accident. He'd earned his enemies. Maybe he'd earn this too. Maybe the world would be better without him in it. But then I thought about my father lying in that ICU bed on the south side, hooked up to machines that beeped his life in steady intervals. I thought about every nurse who'd stayed past shift and to hold his hand. Every doctor who'd fought insurance companies like they were fighting death itself. Every stranger who'd shown mercy to a man who couldn't pay them back. I thought about mercy, unearned and freely given. The kind that doesn't check your credit score or your criminal record first. The kind that just says, you're a human being and that's enough. I thought, I can't just watch someone die. So I grabbed a receipt from my apron, clicked my pen, and wrote 7 words that would either save his life or end mine. My reflection in the wine glasses looked ghost pale as I made my way to Table 12. Each step felt like walking through water, time stretching and contracting in ways that made my head swim. I was hyper-aware of everything, the scratch of polyester uniform against my skin, the squeak of my non-slip shoes on marble, the weight of the receipt folded in my palm like a grenade. The way Serena's laugh sounded like crystal breaking. The way the 2 men near the entrance shifted in their seats as I passed. You're Glenfiddich, sir. My voice came out steady. Professional. Like I hadn't just overheard a murder plot. Like my hands weren't shaking hard enough to ripple the amber liquid in the glass. I set the crystal tumbler down on the white tablecloth, neat and precise. The whiskey caught the candlelight and glowed like a warning, like liquid fire. Then I did the thing every server is trained never to do. I touched him. My thumb pressed against the back of his hand as I slid the folded receipt beneath his coaster. The contact lasted maybe half a second, a violation of every rule, every invisible boundary between his world and mine. Between the people who served and the people who were served. Between life and death. Hwanji's eyes snapped to mine. They were darker than I expected. Not cold, but calculating. Sharp. The kind of eyes that saw through uniforms and pretense straight into intention. His gaze held mine for a beat too long, and something shifted in my chest. Not attraction, but recognition. Like looking into the eyes of a wolf that could either let you pass or rip out your throat. "Read it," I mouthed. "Please." His fingers curled around the receipt, palm hiding it completely. "Is there something wrong with the service?" Serena's voice cut through the moment, sweet as poisoned honey. Huan Jiai's expression didn't change. Didn't flicker. He lifted his glass, took a slow, deliberate sip of whiskey, and with his other hand, unfolded the note beneath the table, where Serena couldn't see. I stood there, tray clutched to my chest like armor, watching his face for any reaction. Nothing. Not a flicker. Not a flinch. Not even a shift in his breathing. Just those dark, calculating eyes moving across 7 words that would decide if we both lived through the night. "Your fiancé sold you out. They're in position." Before we dive deeper into this story, take a moment to hit that like button if you love suspenseful, emotional stories that keep you on the edge of your seat. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next thrilling chapter. We also want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Whether it's your city, your country, or even just your favorite spot to watch these stories, we love connecting with our global audience. Now, let's get back to the story and see just how far courage can take someone when danger is closing in. The rain came down in sheets, turning the city into a blur of neon and brake lights. But in here, everything was warm. Too warm. Suffocating. 30 minutes ago, I'd been invisible. Just another black girl in a white apron, weaving between tables with a professional smile that cost nothing and meant less. Nobody looked at servers. Not really. We were furniture with pulses, part of the decor that occasionally brought food. That invisibility had saved me in the wine cellar. I'd been sent down to grab a 2009 Barolo for table 4, threading through bottles worth more than my father's hospital bills when I heard her voice. Sharp. Italian. Cutting through the climate-controlled air like a blade. Tavolo Dodasai. L'uomo con il tatuaggio. Table 12. The man with the tattoo. I froze between the Chiantis and Amarones, heart slamming against my ribs. Through the glass walls, I could see her reflection, Serena Calabrese in that blood-red dress, phone pressed to her ear, speaking in rapid fragments I barely understood. "Le machine sono già in posizione." The cars are already in position. Then Russian. Or something close. Harsh consonants that made my skin crawl even though I couldn't parse a single word. But tone needs no translation. She wasn't making dinner plans. Alle dieci. Non prima. 10 o'clock. Not before. I pressed myself against the wine rack, praying the shadows would swallow me whole. When her heels finally clicked up the stairs, I counted to 30 before I moved. Before I breathed. When I climbed back to the main floor, Barolo forgotten, everything had shifted. Table 12. Corner booth. Hwanji Lim and Serena Calabrese, Korean Mafia and Italian mob royalty. Their engagement was supposed to be a merger, a peace treaty wrapped in romance. Instead, it was an execution dressed up as love. I scanned the room with new eyes. 2 men by the entrance. Menus unopened. 1 woman at the bar, champagne untouched, eyes locked on table 12. Another man near the coat check, hand inside his jacket. Waiting. I looked at Hwanji laughing at something Serena said, completely unaware the woman touching his wrist had just ordered his death. I could walk away. Clock out. Let this play out like it was always going to. Men like him didn't accidentally make enemies. Maybe he deserved what was coming. But I thought about my father in that ICU bed, machines breathing for him when his lungs forgot how. I thought about the nurse who'd stayed 3 hours past her shift just to sit with him. The doctor who'd fought insurance like she was fighting God himself. Mercy I couldn't afford to give back but had been given anyway. I thought, I can't just watch someone die. So I grabbed a receipt, clicked my pen, and wrote 7 words that would either save his life or end mine. My hand shook. The ink smeared. I folded the paper into quarters and walked toward table 12 like I was walking toward the edge of the world. Because maybe I was. My reflection in the wine glasses looked ghost pale as I made my way to table 12. Each step felt like walking through water, time stretching and contracting in ways that made my head swim. I was hyper-aware of everything: the scratch of polyester uniform against my skin, the squeak of my non-slip shoes on marble, the weight of the receipt folded in my palm like a grenade. The way Serena's laugh sounded like crystal breaking. The way the 2 men near the entrance shifted in their seats as I passed. The whiskey sat on my tray, amber liquid glowing in the low light. Glenfiddich 18. Huangjiai's usual order, according to the notes in our system. A drink expensive enough to feed my father's medications for a week. Your Glenfiddich, sir. My voice came out steady, professional, like I hadn't just overheard a murder plot. Like my hands weren't shaking hard enough to make the ice in nearby water glasses tremble in sympathy. I set the crystal tumbler down on the white tablecloth, neat and precise. The whiskey caught the candlelight, throwing fractured gold across the linen. Then I did the thing every server is trained never to do. I touched him. My thumb pressed against the back of his hand as I slid the folded receipt beneath his coaster. The contact lasted maybe half a second, a violation of every rule, every invisible boundary between his world and mine. His skin was warm, warmer than I expected. Human. Huangjiai's eyes snapped to mine. They were darker than the whiskey, sharper than the knife tucked in my apron for cutting lemons. The kind of eyes that saw through uniforms and lies straight into bone-deep intention. His gaze held mine for a beat too long, and something shifted in my chest. Not attraction, but recognition. Like looking into the eyes of a wolf that could either let you pass or tear out your throat, and you'd never know which until it was too late. Read it, I mouthed. Please. His fingers curled around the receipt, palm hiding it completely. Smooth. Practiced. Like he'd done this before in a dozen other restaurants with a dozen other desperate people trying to save his life. Is there something wrong with the service? Serena's voice cut through the moment, sweet as arsenic in champagne. I forced myself to meet her eyes. They were cold, empty. The eyes of someone who'd just ordered a man's death with the same tone she'd used to order dessert. No, ma'am. Everything's perfect. The lie tasted like copper on my tongue. Huangjiai lifted his glass, took a slow, deliberate sip of whiskey. With his other hand, hidden beneath the table where Serena couldn't see, he unfolded the note. I stood there, tray clutched to my chest like armor, watching his face for any reaction. Nothing. Not a flicker. Not a flinch. Not even a shift in his breathing. Just those dark eyes moving across 7 words. Your fiancé sold you out. They're in position. The seconds stretched like taffy. My pulse hammered so loud I was sure everyone in the restaurant could hear it. Could hear the choice I'd just made, the side I'd just chosen in a war I didn't understand. Then Huangjiai set down his glass. Smiled. The expression didn't reach his eyes. Actually, darling, he said, voice smooth as the whiskey he'd just tasted, I changed my mind about the drink. He slid the tumbler across the table toward Serena. You have it. I know how much you love Glenfiddich. Serena's perfectly painted smile faltered. Just for a second. Just enough. I ordered wine, remember? The Bordeaux. Humor me. It wasn't a request. His hand rested on the table, fingers no longer drumming but perfectly still. Predator still. 1 sip. For me. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. I felt it on my skin. Saw it in the way Serena's hand hesitated halfway to the glass. Don't be ridiculous, Huanji. I don't even like whiskey. Then it won't hurt to try. His smile sharpened. Unless there's a reason you don't want to drink it. The silence that followed was the kind that precedes earthquakes. I should have left. Should have backed away, returned to the kitchen, disappeared into the safety of invisibility. But my feet wouldn't move. I was rooted there, watching this game of chess play out with lives instead of pieces. Serena's eyes flicked to me, then to the glass, then back to Huanji. You're being paranoid, she said, but her voice had lost its sugar coating. Now it was just steel wrapped in red lipstick. Then drink it. The two men by the entrance leaned forward in their seats. The woman at the bar set down her phone. Even the ambient noise of the restaurant seemed to hush, like the whole world was holding its breath. Serena's hand wrapped around the glass. Her knuckles went white. She lifted it to her lips, and for a moment I thought she'd actually do it. Thought maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe I'd just destroyed my life over fragments of Italian I barely understood. Then she set the glass down without drinking. I think we should leave, she said, voice tight. I'm not feeling well. Huanji didn't move. No. I don't think we will. His eyes met mine again, just for a heartbeat. And in that look, I saw something that made my blood run cold and hot all at once. He believed me, and now he was going to do something about it. Check, please, he said quietly, still looking at me. We're done here. But we all knew the night was just beginning. It happened in the space between heartbeats. 1 second, Huanji was sitting perfectly still, eyes locked on Serena, like he was waiting for her to make the first move. The next, his gaze cut past her shoulder to the entrance, then to the bar, then to the coat check. I saw it register in his face. Not panic, but calculation. Cold, instant math. The two men by the entrance stood up. Not quickly. Not obviously. Just a synchronized shift from sitting to standing that looked casual until you noticed their hands disappearing inside their jackets. The woman at the bar slid off her stool, champagne still untouched, moving toward the dining room with the kind of purpose that made my stomach drop. The man at the coat check stepped away from the wall. They were tightening the circle. Huanji's hand shot across the table and grabbed my wrist. His grip was iron, sudden enough to make me gasp. What are you? Play along, he said, voice low and deadly calm. Then louder, loud enough for the tables around us to hear. Are you kidding me? Look at this. He yanked me forward, hard enough that I stumbled against the table. My tray clattered to the floor. The sound cut through the restaurant's ambient noise like a gunshot. I asked for McKellen. His voice rose, sharp with manufactured rage. Not this cheap garbage. Do you know how much I pay to eat here? Every eye in the restaurant turned toward us. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Forks paused halfway to mouths. The ambient music seemed to quiet, like even the speakers were holding their breath. Sir, I apologize, I can. My voice shook, but not from acting. His grip on my wrist was bruising, desperate beneath the performance. You can get your manager. That's what you can do. He stood abruptly, pulling me with him. My shoulder slammed into his chest. This is unacceptable. Through the chaos, I saw Serena's face go white. Not with embarrassment, with understanding. She knew what he was doing. Huanji, sit down, she said quietly, urgently. Don't make a scene. Don't make a scene. He laughed, the sound bitter and manic. I'm paying $300 for dinner, and she brings me the wrong drink. He moved toward the kitchen, dragging me with him. Not toward the exit. Toward the back. Away from the tightening circle of assassins who were now frozen, caught between completing their mission and not drawing attention in a room full of witnesses watching a rich man throw a tantrum. Sir, please. I played my part, trying to pull away just enough to make it look real. I'm so sorry. I'll fix it right now. You're damn right you will. He shoved me ahead of him, toward the swinging kitchen doors. To everyone watching, it looked like an entitled monster berating service staff. To the 4 people positioned around the restaurant with guns hidden under expensive suits, it looked like a problem. I caught a glimpse of the man from the entrance moving forward, hand inside his jacket. The woman from the bar changed trajectory, angling toward us instead of table 12. They were adapting, recalculating. Huan Ji. Serena stood now, voice sharp. Enough. But we were already at the kitchen doors. He slammed through them, pulling me into the controlled chaos of Celestina's back of house. Steam and shouting, pans clanging, chefs calling orders in 3 languages. The sous chef looked up, face twisted in confusion and anger. Hey, you can't be back here. Huan Ji didn't slow down. He weaved between prep stations with a kind of spatial awareness that said he'd mapped exits before he'd ever sat down to dinner. His hand shifted from my wrist to my upper arm, grip loosening just enough that I could feel the tremor in his fingers.
Fear.
He was actually afraid. Where's the back exit? His voice was low again, meant only for me. Loading dock. Through dry storage. My heart slammed against my ribs, so hard I tasted metal. But how many doors between here and there?
2.
Maybe 3 if you count the walk-in. The kitchen doors exploded open behind us. Not the gentle swing of someone following us. The violent crash of someone done pretending. I looked back and saw him, one of the men from the entrance, hand no longer inside his jacket but outside it, holding something black and angular that made my brain short-circuit with recognition and denial all at once. A gun. He had a gun in the middle of Celestina's kitchen. Someone screamed. Pans clattered to the floor. The sous chef dove behind the guard manger station. Huan Ji yanked me sideways, behind a prep table stacked with prepped vegetables. His other hand moved to his back, under his suit jacket, and came out holding his own weapon, smaller, sleeker, but just as deadly. Stay behind me, he said. What the hell is happening? My voice came out as a whisper, strangled by terror. What you warned me about. He checked the chamber on his gun with practiced efficiency. They moved up the timeline. The assassin advanced through the kitchen, weapon raised. Behind him, I could see the woman from the bar entering, phone to her ear, calling someone. Calling backup. Calling the others. We were trapped between the dining room full of killers and whatever was waiting for us at the back exit. Huan Ji's jaw tightened. He looked at me, and for the first time since I'd slipped him that note, his mask cracked just enough for me to see what was underneath. Not a mafia boss. Not a criminal. Just a man who'd realized his fiancée had sold him to his enemies, and the only person who'd tried to save him was a waitress he didn't know. I'm sorry, he said. Then he rose from behind the prep table and fired. The gunshot was so loud in the enclosed kitchen that my ears immediately started ringing, the sound turning the world into cotton and pressure and my own heartbeat screaming in my skull. And then all hell broke loose. The lights went out. Not gradually. Not flickering. Just sudden, complete darkness that swallowed the kitchen whole and turned the screaming into something primal. Someone had cut the power. Someone who knew exactly what they were doing. I couldn't see Huan Ji. Couldn't see my own hands in front of my face. The only light came from the emergency exit signs glowing red in the distance like demon eyes, and the blue flame still burning under a pot on the range. Stay down. Huan Ji's voice cut through the chaos, somewhere to my left. Another gunshot. The muzzle flash lit up the kitchen for a fraction of a second, long enough to see shapes moving, shadows converging, the glint of metal that wasn't cookware. I pressed myself against the prep table, heart trying to punch through my ribcage. My hands scrabbled across the stainless steel surface, searching for anything, finding nothing but julienned vegetables and the edge of a cutting board. Footsteps.
Close.
Too close. Moving toward me with the confidence of someone who could see in the dark or didn't need to. My fingers closed around something cylindrical. A knife handle. I grabbed it, pulled it close, felt the weight of the blade. A chef's knife. 8 inches. Sharp enough to slice tomatoes paper thin. Sharp enough to cut flesh. The footsteps were right on top of me now. I could hear breathing. Could smell cologne and gun oil and something else. Sweat, adrenaline, the scent of a predator closing in on prey. I didn't think.
Couldn't afford to.
I lunged upward with the knife, aiming for where I thought his center mass would be. The blade caught fabric, then resistance, then something that gave way with a sickening sensation that traveled up my arm and lodged itself in my chest. The man made a sound, not quite a scream, more like all the air leaving his lungs at once, and stumbled backward. His gun went off. The bullet pinged off the range hood, ricocheting with a whine that made my teeth ache. Zarya. Huan Jiai's hand found my arm in the darkness, yanked me sideways just as another shape materialized where I'd been standing. We moved through the kitchen like we were underwater, every step uncertain, every shadow potentially lethal. I could hear fighting, fists on flesh, bodies slamming into equipment, someone's labored breathing that might have been mine, or might have been someone dying. Huan Jiai fired twice more. Each muzzle flash revealed a snapshot of violence. A man falling, another ducking behind the walk-in, the sous chef huddled in the corner with his hands over his head, the woman from the bar aiming at us from across the kitchen. The oil. I didn't know where the thought came from, didn't question it. I just grabbed the handle of the stockpot on the still-burning range. Peanut oil. Used for frying. Still hot from dinner service, bubbles breaking the surface like tiny volcanoes. The woman fired. The bullet hit the wall 6 inches from my head, and I felt the percussion in my teeth, tasted drywall dust and terror. I swung the pot with everything I had. Hot oil arced through the darkness like liquid fire, catching what little light there was and throwing it back in gold and amber. It hit the woman mid-stride. Her scream was immediate, primal, the kind of sound that bypasses the brain and goes straight to the spine. She went down, clawing at her face, at her neck, at skin that was already blistering. Move! Huan Jiai shoved me forward, toward the back of the kitchen. We crashed through what felt like a bead curtain, plastic strips that slapped against my face and shoulders, and into a space that smelled like flour and cardboard and dust. Dry storage. Huan Jiai slammed the door behind us through some kind of bolt. In the pitch black, I heard him breathing hard, heard the metallic click of him reloading his weapon. Are you hurt? His voice was rough, urgent. I don't know. My hands were shaking so badly, I had to press them against my stomach to make them stop. I stabbed someone. And I threw hot oil on a woman and You saved our lives. His hand found my shoulder in the darkness, squeezed once.
Breathe.
We're not done yet. How many are there? At least 4. Maybe more. He moved away, and I heard him checking the door, testing its strength. This won't hold long. I forced myself to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth, like the meditation app on my phone had taught me during panic attacks after 12-hour shifts. It didn't help. Nothing could help. I was in a dark storage room with a Mafia boss, covered in someone else's blood, while armed assassins tried to kill us both. This was insane. This was impossible. This was happening. There's another exit, I heard myself say. Through the loading dock. Down that hall. Past the dishwashing station. How do you know? I work here. Worked here. Past tense. Because even if we survived this, I was never coming back. Never putting on that uniform again. Never pretending to be invisible while the world burned around me. Something heavy hit the door.
Once. Twice.
The bolt rattled in its housing. How many bullets do you have left? I whispered. There was a pause. Too long of a pause. Enough, he lied. The door shook again. Harder this time. Wood splintered. The bolt wouldn't hold much longer. I thought about my father in that hospital bed. Thought about how I'd told him I'd visit tomorrow after my shift. Thought about how tomorrow might not come. I'm sorry I got you into this, Huan Ji said quietly. I got myself into it. My voice surprised me with its steadiness. I wrote the note, remember? Why did you? Because someone had to. Another impact. The door frame cracked. Huan Ji's hand found mine in the darkness. His fingers were cold, steady, and for just a moment, I let myself hold on. When this door breaks, he said, we run. Don't look back. Don't stop. Just run. Okay. And Zarya? Yeah. Thank you. The door exploded inward and we ran. We ran through the darkness like our lives depended on it because they did. Behind us, footsteps pounded against tile. Shouts in Korean and Italian overlapped, creating a symphony of violence that chased us through the back corridors of Celestina's. Huan Ji's hand was iron around my wrist, pulling me forward when I stumbled, keeping me upright when my legs forgot how to work. The dishwashing station loomed ahead, all stainless steel and steam. A young guy in a soaked apron looked up from the industrial sink, eyes going wide. Back door. I gasped. Where's? A bullet punched through the wall 6 inches from my head. The dishwasher dropped to the floor, and we kept running. The loading dock door was right there. So close. Heavy steel with a push bar that glowed in the emergency lighting like a promise. Like salvation. Huan Ji hit it first, shoulders slamming into the metal. It gave way with a groan, and we spilled out into the alley, into rain that came down in sheets, into air that tasted like freedom and garbage and exhaust. A black SUV idled 20 feet away, headlights cutting through the downpour. There. Huan Ji pulled me toward it, toward safety, toward. The back door of the restaurant burst open behind us. Huan Ji SSI. The voice cut through the rain, speaking Korean with an accent I couldn't place. Stop. We froze. Not because of the voice, but because of who it belonged to. A man stepped into the alley, gun raised but not aimed. Not yet. He wore a black tactical vest over a dress shirt, radio clipped to his shoulder. He was Korean mid-30s, with a face that might have been handsome if it wasn't twisted with something that looked like regret. Daeyoung. Huan Ji's voice was barely audible over the rain. What are you doing? My job. But the gun in his hand trembled. I'm sorry, sir. I really am. You're my head of security. Huan Ji's grip on my wrist loosened, but he didn't let go. You've been with me for 6 years. I know. Daeyoung's jaw clenched. And I was paid well for 5 of them. The rain plastered my hair to my skull, ran into my eyes, but I couldn't look away. Couldn't process what I was seeing. This wasn't a random assassin. This was someone Huan Ji trusted. Someone on his payroll. Who bought you? Huan Ji's voice dropped to something dangerous, something that made the temperature in the alley plummet despite the summer rain. Was it the Calabrese family? Does it matter? Yes. The word came out like a bullet. It matters because I'm going to kill them slowly. After I kill you. Daeyoung laughed, the sound bitter. You're not killing anyone. You're going to get in that SUV and drive away, and I'm going to tell them I lost you in the chaos. You get a head start. That's more than you deserve. Why? I heard myself ask. My voice sounded small, foreign. Why would you betray him? Dae-young's eyes cut to me for the first time, taking in my uniform, my face, the blood spattered across my white apron that wasn't mine. You don't know him like I do, he said quietly. You don't know the things he's done, the people he's hurt. I know someone's trying to murder him in cold blood, I shot back. I know that, because his brother asked me to. The words fell like stones into dark water. Jun Suk Lim pays better. And when this is over, when Hwang Ji-ai is dead, Jun Suk will be the one running things. The right way. The world tilted sideways. Jun Suk. Hwang Ji-ai's voice was barely a whisper. My brother hired you to kill me? Half-brother, Dae-young corrected. He wanted me to remind you of that. Something in Hwang Ji-ai's expression cracked. Not grief. Something colder. Something that made me understand, in that moment, exactly who I'd saved. What I'd saved. How long? Hwang Ji-ai asked. 6 months. Since he started planning the merger with the Calabrese family. Since he realized marrying you off to Serena would give you too much power. Too much reach. Dae-young's gun hand steadied. He offered her a better deal. More territory. More money. And your head on a platter. So, she was working with Jun Suk from the beginning. The engagement was fake from the start. You were just too blind to see it. Dae-young took a step forward. Now get in the SUV. I'm giving you one chance because you were good to me once. Don't waste it. Who else? Hwang Ji-ai's voice was deadly calm. Who else is with him? Everyone who matters. Dae-young smiled, and it was the saddest thing I'd ever seen. You're alone, boss. You've been alone for 6 months and didn't even know it. Behind him, shapes moved in the doorway. More people coming. More guns. Go. Dae-young fired a shot over our heads. Go now, or I change my mind. Hwang Ji-ai yanked me toward the SUV. We hit the back door at a dead run, scrambling inside just as bullets started pinging off the armored exterior. The driver, a woman I'd never seen before with a scar across her temple, didn't wait for us to close the door. She punched the accelerator and we fishtailed out of the alley, tires screaming against wet asphalt. Through the back window, I saw Dae-young standing in the rain, gun lowered, watching us disappear. The other shapes emerged from the building, raising weapons, but we were already gone, already swallowed by the city lights and the storm. I collapsed against the leather seat, lungs burning, hands shaking so badly I had to clasp them together to keep them still. Hwang Ji-ai sat perfectly still beside me, water dripping from his hair, his expensive suit ruined, his face a mask of ice. Your brother, I managed. Your own brother. Half-brother, he corrected, voice hollow. He wanted me to remember that. The SUV merged into traffic, just another vehicle in a city full of them. Anonymous. Invisible. But we both knew it didn't matter. Jun Suk would come for us. Serena would come for us. And everyone Hwang Ji-ai had trusted, everyone except the waitress who'd written 7 words on a receipt, was already working for the man who wanted him dead. Where are we going? I asked. Hwang Ji-ai finally looked at me, and his eyes held something I couldn't name. Gratitude. Anger.
Fear.
Something else underneath it all that made my stomach drop. Somewhere safe, he said. Somewhere even Jun Suk doesn't know about. He pulled out his phone, tapped a number, waited. It's me, he said quietly. I'm coming home. Prepare the fortress. The SUV cut through the rain-slicked streets like a shark through dark water, leaving the restaurant and the bodies and the life I'd known 45 minutes behind. 45 minutes. That's all it had taken for my world to explode. Hwang Ji-ai sat beside me in silence, staring at nothing, jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping beneath his skin. Blood, someone else's, stained his collar. His hands rested on his knees, perfectly still except for the slight tremor in his fingers that he couldn't quite control. "Tell me everything," I said finally. "From the beginning."
He didn't look at me.
Just kept staring out the window at the city passing by, lights blurring into streams of gold and red. "Jun Suk is my father's second son," he said quietly. "Different mother. American woman my father had an affair with in the 90s. Jun Suk grew up in Seoul, but he was never legitimate, never recognized in the way that mattered." I waited, let him talk. "When my father died 3 years ago, I inherited everything. The businesses, the territory, the connections." His voice was flat, clinical, like he was reciting facts from a textbook. "Jun Suk got money. Enough to live well. But not power. Never power. So, he wanted what you had. He wanted what he thought should have been his." Hwan Ji finally looked at me, and his eyes were empty. "The Calabrese family has been trying to expand into our territory for years. Jun Suk approached them 6 months ago with a proposal. A marriage alliance. Me and Serena. It would unite the families, open new markets, and decades of territorial disputes. But it was a trap. The engagement was real. The alliance was real. My feelings," he stopped, laughed bitterly. "I actually believed she cared. That we were building something together." The SUV turned onto a highway, accelerating into the night. The driver, the scarred woman who hadn't spoken a word, checked her mirrors with mechanical precision. "Jun Suk promised Serena more than I could give her," Hwan Ji continued. "My territory plus his. My contacts plus his money. All she had to do was get close to me. Gain my trust. And then, at the wedding, when all the families would be gathered in one place, watching us unite," he made a gesture like a knife across his throat, "I'd be killed. Jun Suk would step in as the grieving brother. Serena would play the devastated widow. And together they'd absorb everything I'd built. That's insane. That's business." He pulled out his phone, scrolled through something, then turned the screen toward me. This was supposed to be our wedding invitation. I looked at the elegant calligraphy, the gold embossing, the date circled in red.
2 weeks from now.
"They moved up the timeline," I said. "Because you warned me." His eyes held mine. They knew someone had tipped me off. Knew they'd lost the element of surprise. So they tried to kill me tonight instead of waiting for the perfect moment. "Your own brother wanted you dead at your wedding." "Half-brother," he corrected automatically. Then his expression darkened. "He wanted to humiliate me first. Wanted me to die thinking I'd found love, found partnership, found someone who saw me as more than a weapon or a bank account." He looked away. I suppose he got his wish anyway. The SUV slowed, turned off the highway onto a private road. Trees closed in on both sides, tall and dark and dense enough to hide anything. We drove for another 10 minutes before the road opened up to reveal gates. Not ordinary gates. Military-grade steel, cameras everywhere, guards in tactical gear who checked the vehicle with mirrors and dogs before waving us through. "Welcome to the fortress," Hwan Ji said dryly. The house, if you could call it that, sprawled across the hilltop like a concrete monument to paranoia. Low profile, flat roof, windows that looked bulletproof because they probably were. Floodlights turned the manicured lawn into daylight. More guards patrolled the perimeter, earpieces glowing in the dark. "How many people know about this place?" I asked. "Now?" 3. The driver. "My head of operations. And you." He opened the door before the SUV fully stopped. "Jun Suk doesn't know it exists. Neither does anyone he bought." I climbed out, legs shaking, and followed him toward the entrance. A man in his 50s met us at the door, gray-haired, sharp-eyed, moving with the efficiency of someone who'd seen worse nights than this. "Sir," he said, bowing slightly, "the perimeter is secure. I've activated all countermeasures." "Good. Get her cleaned up. Clothes, food, medical check if she needs it." Huan Ji gestured to me like I was cargo. "And bring me her phone." I froze. "My phone." He turned to me, and his expression was apologetic but immovable. "You can't contact anyone. Not your friends. Not your family. Not anyone." "My father." Panic clawed at my throat. "He's in the hospital. He's sick. I need to." "Give me the phone, Zarya."
No.
I backed away, hand instinctively moving to my pocket. "You don't understand, I understand perfectly." Huan Ji closed the distance between us in 2 strides. "Which is why I'm going to protect him." "What?" He held out his hand, palm up. "Your phone."
Now.
"And in exchange, I give you my word that your father will have the best security, the best medical care, everything he needs. 24-hour protection. Private room.
Specialists.
Whatever it takes." I stared at him, at this man I'd saved, this criminal who'd just had his life torn apart by his own blood. "You're making me choose," I whispered, "between contacting him and protecting him. I'm making you survive."
His voice softened.
"They know you warned me. Serena saw you slip me the note. Junsook's people will trace you within hours. They'll use your father to get to you. To get to me." He stepped closer. "But if he has my protection, real protection, the kind money and fear can buy, they won't touch him. I promise you that." My hand shook as I pulled out my phone. The screen showed 3 missed calls from my father's nurse. 5 texts asking if I was okay, when I'd visit tomorrow. Tomorrow. Like tomorrow still existed. I placed the phone in Huan Ji's hand. "He's at Mercy General," I said, voice cracking. "Room 412. His name is Marcus Mitchell. He has chronic heart failure and I'll take care of it." Huan Ji handed the phone to the gray-haired man. "Get a team to Mercy General immediately."
Discreet.
"No one touches Marcus Mitchell. No one even looks at him wrong." "Yes, sir." Huan Ji turned back to me, and for the first time since we'd escaped the restaurant, something other than ice showed in his expression.
Guilt.
Gratitude. Something uncomfortably close to tenderness. "You saved my life tonight," he said quietly. "That makes you my responsibility now, whether you want it or not." I didn't ask for this. Neither did I. He smiled, but it was bitter. But here we are. The fortress door closed behind us with a sound like a vault ceiling, like a tomb, like the end of one life and the beginning of something else entirely. Something darker. Something I wasn't sure either of us would survive. 3 days in the fortress, and I'd learned that survival required more than luck and a ballpoint pen. It required knowing how to kill. The training room was all concrete and fluorescent lighting, mats covering the floor like they expected blood. Huan Ji stood across from me in a black t-shirt and tactical pants, looking like violence incarnate even at 7 in the morning. "Again," he said. I lunged forward, knife in hand, training blade, rubber, but the movements were real, and aimed for his throat. He blocked, twisted my wrist, and had me on the ground in under 3 seconds. "You're telegraphing." He released me, stepped back. "Your shoulders drop before you move. Any trained fighter will see it coming." I pushed myself up, breathing hard, sweat stinging my eyes. Maybe because I'm a waitress, not an assassin. "You stopped being just a waitress when you threw that oil." His eyes held no sympathy. "Now you're someone who's killed. Someone they want dead. So you learn or you die." 3 days of this. Hand-to-hand combat in the morning, weapons training in the afternoon, strategy sessions at night. My body was a collection of bruises that bloomed purple and yellow across brown skin. My hands had calluses forming where soft skin used to be. But I was faster now. Harder. Something in me had changed that night in the restaurant kitchen, and I couldn't change it back. One more time, Huanji, I said. Then we talk about the plan. I came at him again, this time keeping my shoulders level, letting my hips generate the momentum. The blade got within 6 inches of his neck before he caught my wrist. But 6 inches was better than 3 seconds on the ground. Better. He almost smiled. You might actually survive this. Survive what exactly? I dropped the training knife, grabbed the water bottle from the bench. You keep saying we have a plan, but you won't tell me what it is. Because you weren't ready to hear it. He crossed to the wall, pulled down a rolled-up document, spread it across the training mat. Now you are. It was a blueprint.
No, a dossier.
Photos, floor plans, guest lists, security schedules. And at the center, an invitation printed on cream cardstock with gold lettering. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Jun-Suk Lim and Serena Calabrese.
I stared at it.
At the date.
6 days from now.
They're still doing it, I said slowly. Even though you escaped. Even though they know you're alive. They're accelerating it. Huanji tapped the guest list. Every major family from Seoul to Chicago will be there. Yakuza. Triad.
Bratva.
The Calabrese family is hosting, which means it's on their territory, their rules.
He looked up at me.
It's the perfect target. For what? For us. His smile was cold, predatory. We're going to crash the wedding. The room tilted. That's insane. That's strategic. He pointed to the floor plan, a sprawling estate in the suburbs. Jun-Suk thinks I'm hiding. Thinks I'm gathering resources, building a new power base, preparing for a long war. He doesn't expect me to walk into the lion's den with a smile on my face. Because that would be suicide. Or brilliant. He met my eyes. If we wait, Jun-Suk consolidates power. Absorbs my territory. Turns every ally I had into an enemy. But if we strike at the wedding, in front of everyone, we expose what he did. We turn his moment of triumph into his downfall. I heard the crack in my voice. I can't. You're the only person I trust. The words hit like bullets. Everyone else is compromised. Everyone else is bought. But you. He stepped closer. You risked everything for a stranger. You killed for me. You're in this whether you want to be or not. I'm a waitress who got in over her head.
No.
His hand caught my chin, forced me to look at him. You're a woman who made a choice. Who decided someone's life mattered more than her own safety. That's not weakness. That's the most dangerous thing in the world. The air between us felt electric, charged with something I didn't want to name. What do you need me to do? I whispered. Be my eyes inside. He released my chin but didn't step back. You'll go in as one of the servers. Gather intelligence. Feed me positions, security gaps, anything I can exploit. And then what? Then I walk in the front door during the ceremony and burn their fucking world down. The way he said it, calm, certain, like he was discussing dinner plans, should have terrified me. Instead, it made something hot and reckless unfurl in my chest. You're going to die, I said. Probably. He smiled. But I'll take them with me. That's not a plan. That's suicide with extra steps. Then help me make it better. His eyes searched mine. You're smart, Zarya. Strategic. You saw the assassination setup before anyone else did. So help me see the angles I'm missing. I stared at the blueprint, at the impossible task laid out in neat lines and careful notations. At the wedding that was supposed to be a beginning but would become an ending. If I do this, I said slowly, If I help you crash that wedding and somehow we survive, what happens after? I don't know. His honesty was brutal. I've never thought past revenge. That's a terrible answer. It's the only one I have. We stood there in the fluorescent light, breathing the same air, close enough that I could see the faint scar on his jaw, the exhaustion he hid behind cold calculation, the fear that lived underneath everything else. You could run, he said quietly. I'd give you money. New identity. You could disappear. Your father would still be protected. Could you? I challenged. Could you run?
No.
Then why would I? Something shifted in his expression. Something raw and unguarded that made my heart kick against my ribs. Because you're not like me, he said. You're not. I threw boiling oil on a woman's face. The words came out hard, sharp. I stabbed a man in the dark and felt him bleed. I'm exactly like you now.
No.
His hand cupped my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone. You did those things to survive. I do them because it's all I know. Then teach me. I didn't recognize my own voice. Teach me how to be the kind of person who walks into a wedding and walks out alive. Zarya. Or kill me. I grabbed his wrist, held his hand against my face. Because I can't go back to who I was. That person died in the restaurant kitchen. So either make me into someone who can survive your world, or put me out of my misery. The silence stretched like wire, taut and humming with tension. Kill or kiss, he said softly. That's what you're asking for. Yes. His other hand slid into my hair, tilted my head back. His eyes were black in the fluorescent light, searching mine for something I didn't have a name for. This is a mistake, he whispered. Probably. He kissed me like the world was ending, like we were both already dead, and this was the last thing we'd ever feel. His mouth was hard, desperate, tasting like coffee and rage, and something that might have been hope if either of us remembered what that felt like. I kissed him back because he was right. I wasn't the waitress anymore. Wasn't the girl who wrote notes and hoped for mercy. I was someone new, someone forged in kitchen fires and alley rain, and 3 days of learning how to survive in a world that wanted me dead. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine.
6 days, he said.
We have 6 days to plan the impossible. Then we better get started. He smiled, and for the first time since I'd met him, it reached his eyes. They broke my lip to make it believable. Not badly, just enough for blood to darken my teeth and make my story stick. Huan Jia had done it himself, a controlled backhand across my mouth while his men held my arms. The sting was still fresh, copper and salt coating my tongue as they shoved me into the back of the SUV. Brava performance, Minjun muttered from the driver's seat, adjusting the rear-view mirror. His knuckles were wrapped in tape-stained rust brown. Not my blood. We'd staged an entire fight in the fortress garage, complete with overturned furniture and broken glass. Huan Jiai's men knew how to sell violence, like artists selling forgery. I pressed my bound wrists against my lap, feeling the looseness of the zip ties. They'd positioned them just tight enough to leave red marks, slack enough that I could slip free if I twisted right. Every detail calculated. Every bruise a brushstroke in the larger picture. The city blurred past the tinted windows. Late afternoon sun cut through Chicago's skyline, turning glass towers into knives of light. We were headed to Calabrese territory, the brownstone district where old money lived behind iron gates and security cameras disguised as ornamental fixtures. Where Serena Costa held court like a queen pretending she hadn't ordered a king's execution. You remember the story? Minjun's eyes found mine in the mirror. I escaped during a supply run. Made it 3 blocks before you caught me. My voice came out steady despite the way my heart was trying to break through my ribs. I'll tell her everything she wants to hear. Everything we needed her to believe. The plan was insane, the kind of strategy that required either genius or suicidal confidence. Huan Jia was betting on both. Feed Serena false information, make her think she knew his next move. Let her prepare for an attack that would never come, while the real assault hit from a completely different angle. The wedding. Jun Suk's wedding to the woman who'd tried to make herself a widow before she'd even walked down the aisle. Minjun pulled the SUV into an alley 2 streets from the Calabrese stronghold. He killed the engine, then turned to face me fully. His expression was harder than the gun tucked against his ribs. "She'll hurt you," he said. Not a warning, a fact. Serena doesn't trust easy. She'll want to see you bleed a little more before she believes you broke. I know. And if this goes wrong, if she sees through it, he didn't finish. He didn't have to. We both knew what happened to liars in Serena Costa's world. We'd seen the photos. Bodies found in the Chicago River, cement shoes and bullet holes like punctuation marks. Then, Huanji, I'd better crash that wedding before she puts me in the ground. Minjun almost smiled. Almost. He pulled out his phone, typed something quick, then pocketed it again. 30 seconds later, 2 men emerged from a black sedan parked at the alley's mouth. I recognized them from the restaurant. The night everything changed. One had been positioned near the bar. The other had kept his hand inside his jacket, ready to draw on Huan Jia when dessert arrived. Turncoats, bought and flipped by Huan Jia's money and threats. Double agents playing both sides until they'd chosen the winning one. Now they were my captors, my ticket into Serena's presence. They dragged me from the SUV with practiced roughness, hands tight on my arms, my feet scraping asphalt. One of them pulled a black hood over my head, and the world went dark except for the thin light bleeding through fabric. I heard Minjun drive away, engine fading into city noise, and then I was alone with men who'd tried to kill the only person standing between me and a shallow grave. Don't try anything smart. One of them growled, accent thick, Italian. For show or for real, I couldn't tell. You're already dead, sweetheart. We're just deciding how quick. They walked me 4 blocks. I counted the turns, memorized the pattern like Huan Jia had taught me. Left, right, straight, right again. The hood smelled like old smoke and someone else's fear. My breath came hot and recycled against my face, condensation dampening the fabric. When they finally stopped, I heard a heavy door open, hinges creaking like a throat clearing. Then stairs descending, the temperature dropping with each step. Basement. Underground. The kind of place where screams got swallowed by concrete and earth. The hood came off in a flash of fluorescent light. Serena Costa sat in a leather chair that looked like a throne, legs crossed, red dress replaced by tailored black pants, and a silk blouse the color of old blood. Her pearl earrings caught the harsh light, throwing tiny reflections across the unfinished walls. Behind her stood 2 men who looked like they crushed skulls for cardio. Beside her, a metal table held items I didn't want to catalog. Pliers.
Blades.
A car battery with jumper cables. She studied me the way a jeweler studies a suspicious diamond, looking for flaws, for fractures, for the places where pressure would shatter everything. So, Serena said, voice smooth as poison honey, the little waitress who ruined everything. She uncrossed her legs, leaned forward, and smiled. Let's talk about Huan Jialim's plans, shall we? And darling. Her eyes went cold, dead, reptilian. If you lie to me even once, I'll make you wish those men had just killed you in that alley. I swallowed blood and fear and met her gaze with the expression of a woman who'd been broken just enough to talk. He's planning to hit the docks, I whispered. 3 nights from now. He thinks Jun Suk's using the shipment as leverage. Serena's smile widened. The trap was set. The wedding was obscene in its beauty. White roses climbed marble columns in the grand ballroom of the Drake Hotel, their petals so perfect they looked carved from ivory. Crystal chandeliers threw fractured light across 200 guests dressed in designer labels and inherited jewelry. The air smelled like money and orchids, and the kind of power that bought silence. I stood beside Huangjai near the back, my hand resting in the crook of his arm like we belonged here. Like we weren't wolves dressed in silk and expensive lies. My dress was midnight blue, cut to show collarbones but nothing else, conservative enough for old money, elegant enough to signal new. My hair was swept up in an elaborate twist, small diamonds glittering at my ears, borrowed from Huangjai's vault, real enough to pass inspection. He wore a charcoal Tom Ford three-piece, his neck tattoo hidden beneath foundation, and a precisely knotted tie. We looked like visiting Korean elite, wealthy and dangerous in equal measure. No one questioned us. Huangjai had bought our way onto the guest list with a forged connection to a Seoul conglomerate. Money recognized money. Power bowed to power. At the altar, Serena Costa stood in a dress that probably cost more than my father's entire hospital bill. White lace and silk, a cathedral train spreading behind her like spilled milk. Her veil was vintage, her bouquet understated, her smile absolutely radiant as she gazed at Jun-Suk Lim. Huangjai's half-brother looked like a crueler, sharper version of the man beside me. Same sharp jaw, same black hair, but where Huangjai carried violence like a concealed weapon, Jun-Suk wore it openly. His eyes held the kind of ambition that burned everything it touched. He was marrying into the Calabrese Empire, cementing an alliance that would make him untouchable. Or so he thought. The officiant droned through the ceremony in English and Italian, words about love and commitment and forever that tasted like ash in a room built on betrayal. I felt Huangjai's arm tense beneath my fingers, the only tell that he was fighting every instinct to put a bullet between his brother's eyes. "Not yet," I whispered, barely moving my lips. His hand covered mine. A promise or a warning, I couldn't tell which. The officiant reached the critical moment. "If anyone objects to this union, speak now or forever hold your peace." The silence stretched like a held breath. Then Huangjai lifted his phone and pressed a single button. Every screen in the ballroom, the massive projection displays flanking the altar, the monitors set up for the live stream, even the DJ's equipment, flickered once and went black. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jun-Suk's head snapped up, scanning the room with predator awareness. Then the footage began to play. Serena's voice filled the ballroom through a dozen speakers, crystal clear, damning. The wine cellar conversation I'd overheard, the one that had started everything. But this was more, much more. Security footage from the Gilded Lotus showing her meeting with the assassins, audio of her coordinating with Jun-Suk, bank transfers with his signature authorizing payment for Huangjai's execution. The room erupted in chaos. Chairs scraped against marble. Voices rose in confusion and accusation. Serena's face went white beneath her veil, then red with rage. Jun-Suk's hand moved toward his jacket, toward the gun everyone knew he carried. But Huangjai was already walking down the aisle, and I was right beside him. Every gun in the room seemed to materialize at once. Calabrese soldiers reaching for weapons, Lim loyalists drawing in response, the line between Italian and Korean blurring into a powder keg waiting for a spark. I counted at least 40 armed men in formal wear, all pointing death at each other across flower arrangements and champagne fountains. We reached the altar. Huangjai stopped 3 feet from his brother, close enough that I could see the resemblance, the shared blood that had curdled into poison. "Hello, Jun-Suk," Huan Ji said, voice carrying across the silent ballroom. Congratulations on your wedding. Though I have to say, marrying your accomplice to my attempted murder seems a bit on the nose, don't you think? Jun-suk's smile was a razor blade. You always were sentimental, brother. Showing up here for what? Revenge? You should have died in that restaurant. I had help. Huan Ji glanced at me, and something passed between us that felt like recognition, like the moment in the Gilded Lotus when I touched his hand and chosen sides. She saved my life. Now I'm returning the favor by ending yours. The first shot came from the back of the room, a Calabrese soldier breaking formation. Then the ballroom became a war zone. I dropped low as glass shattered and marble cracked under the barrage of gunfire. Huan Ji had me on the ground, his body covering mine, returning fire with a pistol that had materialized from an ankle holster. Around us, Chicago's criminal elite tore itself apart in a storm of bullets and blood and broken alliances. Jun-suk and Serena ran for separate exits, their wedding party scattering like shrapnel. Huan Ji's men, positioned throughout the room in disguise, closed ranks, creating a corridor of cover fire. We moved as one unit, low and fast, years of criminal training evident in every calculated step. By the time we reached the service exit, half of Jun-suk's loyalists were dead or surrendered. The rest would fall in line or fall permanently. That was how succession worked in this world. Blood determined hierarchy, and today, Huan Ji had spilled enough to reclaim his throne. Outside, the SUV waited with Min Jun behind the wheel. We dove into the back seat as sirens wailed in the distance. Too late. Always too late when power and money decided to settle scores in private. Huan Ji looked at me, his face spattered with someone else's blood, his eyes holding something that wasn't quite gratitude and wasn't quite possession. It was darker, more complicated, more permanent. You're in this now, he said. Not a question, not an apology. I touched his face, my thumb brushing the blood from his cheekbone, and thought about the waitress I'd been 6 weeks ago. She was gone, burned away in wine cellars and fortress training rooms, and the moment I'd chosen mercy over self-preservation. I know, I said. We're partners now. Partners, he repeated, testing the word like a new weapon. Then he kissed me, hard and claiming, sealing an alliance that would be written in the underworld's history books. The Korean Mafia boss and the woman who'd saved him. We drove into the Chicago night, leaving behind a wedding-turned-war zone, a half-brother's failed coup, and any chance of returning to normal life. I didn't look back. Neither did he. And that's how a single choice in a wine cellar changed everything. Zaria Mitchell walked into the Gilded Lotus as an invisible waitress trying to pay her father's medical bills. She walked out as a queen in a criminal empire, standing beside the most dangerous man in Chicago. All because she chose mercy when she could have chosen silence. Think about that for a second. One folded receipt. 7 words. 60 seconds of courage. That's all it took to rewrite 2 destinies and burn down an entire power structure. Because here's the truth this story reveals. The most dangerous thing you can do in this world isn't pulling a trigger or declaring war. It's choosing to act when every instinct screams at you to stay invisible. It's deciding that someone else's life matters, even when saving them might destroy yours. Zaria didn't know if Huan Ji deserved mercy. She gave it anyway. And in return, she found something she didn't even know she was looking for. A partner who saw her not as invisible, but as essential. Someone who looked past the uniform and the class divide and recognized her for exactly what she was, dangerous in her own right. That's the kind of love story that leaves scars. The kind built on blood and bullets and broken alliances. Not a fairy tale, but something rawer, realer, and infinitely more captivating. So here's my question for you. What would you have done? If you'd overheard that conversation in the wine cellar, if you'd had 60 seconds and one folded receipt, would you have warned him? Would you have risked everything for a stranger who lived in a world you'd never be part of? Or would you have walked away, clocked out early, and let fate handle it? Drop your answer in the comments right now. I want to know, would you be Zarya, or would you be the version of yourself that chose survival over mercy? And listen, if this story grabbed you by the throat and didn't let go, if you stayed through betrayals and bullets and that wedding crash that probably made your heart stop, then you need to hit that subscribe button immediately. Because I'm bringing you more stories like this. More impossible choices, more dangerous romance, more characters who refuse to stay in their lane and end up burning the whole world down because of it. Smash that like button if you're Team Zarya and Hwanji. If you believe that sometimes the most powerful love stories are the ones that start with a whispered warning and end with a crown made of consequences. Turn on notifications so you never miss when I drop the next chapter, the next story, the next impossible choice that'll have you questioning what you would do in the same situation. And if you want to see what happens next, because trust me, a criminal empire doesn't run itself and Zarya's father still needs her, and there are enemies circling who won't forget what happened at that wedding. Check out the full story link in the description below.
This isn't the end.
This is just the beginning of something darker, deeper, and more dangerous than either of them imagined. So comment, subscribe, like, and I'll see you in the next story. Because we're just getting started. And remember, in a world that demands you stay invisible, the most revolutionary thing you can do is choose to be seen. Now go. Make your choice.